All wings report in.
HouseDog, standing by.
MotherGoose, standing by.
Lock S-foils in attack position. Animal Squadron ready for battle.
Hello there, and welcome to Animal Squadron. I am HouseDog, and with me, as always, my favorite person to fly around the galaxy with, MotherGoose. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really great. How about you?
Excited for another podcast. Excited to hang out with you for another 2 hours.
Yeah, definitely. Same. Okay, so real quick before we get really into it, I just want to give a quick reminder to our listeners that when critiquing the dialogue, I think episode 2 is the film that people meme the most about the dialogue. But just a reminder that when George Lucas was writing the prequels, he took a lot of inspiration from Shakespeare and just how kind of overly dramatic it was while writing the dialogue.
Yes. Are you ready to get into it? Because I'm excited.
Yes. Yeah, same.
Even though episode 2 isn't really my favorite, I managed to, write 3 pages of notes as opposed to my 4 last time.
I think I doubled my notes from last time.
From 2 to 4?
From 5 or 6 to 13 to 14-ish.
Well, great.
Yeah, got a lot to say.
You'll have double the amount of one-liners to say.
Double the amount.
All right, let's get into it. So, starting out, I noticed right away, and I haven't ever thought of this before, but, we see the ship come in that Padme's on into Coruscant because it explains in the crawl that she's on her way there to vote in the Senate of whether the Republic should create a grand army.
Yeah.
For the Separatists.
Right.
Because everybody's starting to leave the Republic. We've got problems all over the galaxy, just like normal. And,
yeah.
Go ahead.
And, okay, that's actually my first note is I didn't realize just how many planets were threatening to leave the Republic. I guess it had never clicked before, but when reading the opening crawl, it literally says several thousand planets wanted to leave the Republic. I think, towards the end of the film, you see the Separatists leaders and they're meeting, and there's only, maybe 10-ish people there. It's kind of hard to forget just how large the Separatists ended up being.
Right. It's a much grander scale than what we see in a small boardroom, essentially.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. It just really stuck out to me. I literally had to stop the film and read that a couple times because I guess I just never noticed how large they were.
Right. It's a lot of systems out there.
A lot of systems, yeah.
But what I noticed was that R2 is with Padme and not with Anakin. We always think of Anakin and R2 being synonymous with each other.
Right.
Especially after watching, the Clone Wars series.
Exactly. So there's a reason for that, but we can talk about that later. Like how that all kinds of goes down in terms of the droids.
Okay, well, I just thought that, since R2 was on her previous ship, he came with her previous ship, that it made sense in my head now, being older and watching the movie, that of course R2 would be with Padme right now instead of Anakin. They haven't really built their relationship yet. Right,
exactly. So at the moment, R2 is Padme's droid.
Right. Until later. So, then we see the ship blow up, and Corday, one of Padme's doubles, dying right off the bat.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a message from the first movie, because, they tried to capture the last movie. And now they're just straight up trying to kill her off within the first, minute and a half of the movie.
Yeah. So something that really stuck out is just when the ship was flying in, I literally said to myself, Coruscant is really beautiful. Because, at at that moment, all you see is the ship flying over a really cloudy Coruscant, and you're only seeing the very tops of a lot of those skyscrapers. And I just thought the scenery just was really beautiful.
No, it almost reminds you of Cloud City later in the series.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And then we get into the interior of Chancellor Palpatine's office. And you know who we see there amongst all of the Jedi? It's a Clone Wars reference. We have Master Luminara Unduli and her Padawan, Barasafi, which is great if you watch the Clone Wars series.
Yeah, because they play a much larger role in the Clone Wars.
Right. They have a huge arc in there. So I always like to really look for Clone Wars characters whenever we rewatch these movies together and be like, okay, so here they are here. So whenever I watch a Clone Wars episode, I'm like, okay, here they are now. Like it all connects.
Yeah. And that's one thing. I'm sure we're going to talk about the Clone Wars at some point on this podcast, but that's one reason I love it so much, because it really develops a lot of those background characters that we don't really see much of during the prequel trilogy.
Right. And we have talked about Clone Wars. I try to bring it up at least once an episode.
At least once an episode, yeah, but I'm sure we'll have at least one or multiple Clone Wars purely focused episodes.
Right. So it's been 10 years since the last movie inside of the Star Wars universe. And in that short 10 years of the, final line we get from Yoda and Mace at the end of Phantom Menace, well, who is the master? Who is the apprentice? In just a short amount of time, a decade, the Jedi have already become blind.
Right. Okay. And Yoda himself says it in that meeting that we were just talking about. He says, the dark side clouds everything. Difficult to see the future it is.
Yes.
And I don't know, it just really shows how the Jedi have fallen from grace.
Or at least misaligned their beliefs so far.
Yeah, like we've talked about in previous episodes, while they still serve the Force, they're also really serving the Republic, and that's one of the issues, because their loyalties are divided, and that's why, Qui-Gon really stuck out, because he was purely focused on what the Force wanted.
Right, again, calling back to that opening crawl, it says it in there that the Jedi are so spread thin amongst the galaxy that they need an army at this point, because it's not because so many of them died. They're literally just spread across so many systems because of all of the tyranny and just crazy stuff happening around the galaxy.
Right, and I'm trying to think through EU and Legends. I'm not sure the Jedi have really faced such a threat in a long time. Obviously they fought the Mandalorians and they fought the Sith, and those were huge wars, but the Jedi were much larger at that point.
Well, it's mentioned in the movie that the Republic hasn't had an army since the formation of the Republic.
Right, which I know I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was either shortly before or shortly after the war with the Mandalorians. But don't quote me, I'll have to double check that.
I don't know either.
Actually, you move on to your next point. I'm going to just look that up real quick, because it's starting to really bother me.
Go for it. So in comes Padme into the meeting after her ship blows up. Corday dies, and they're immediately trying to find out who is plotting these assassination attempts on her. And she suggests Count Dooku. And all of the Jedi at once go, oh, it can't be him. He was once a Jedi. It's not in his nature to be this way. He's just a politician now. And I'm like, dang it, guys. They're obviously so clouded in their vision because I'm obviously very flustered.
Right. And, I mean, even a little bit later, Yoda mentions that a lot of the Jedi have become arrogant, even the older and wiser Jedi.
Yes.
And I think, I mean, I don't know if he was really considering the council, but I mean, they really were so blind, not thinking that someone who'd literally left and betrayed the order would still follow their rules and their morals.
Right. How much do you enjoy the elevator scene between grown-up Obi-Wan and also now kind of grown-up Anakin?
Oh, so much. I really think in that short scene, you can see how much they've both grown and kind of the relationship they've formed.
Right. We see Obi-Wan becoming more of who he is while also kind of having those qualities that Qui-Gon had.
Yeah.
I just love it. Anakin's so nervous, about seeing Padme for the first time in 10 years. He's not a little boy anymore. He's a young man. And Obi-Wan knows he's nervous and, just kind of picks at him like in that older brother way. But yet he's still, a father figure to him.
Right. Which we kind of discussed a little bit last time. Okay, so I found those dates. The Mandalorian Wars took place about 4000 BBY, and I have 2 dates for the Republic. So the Republic we see in the prequels was formed about 1000 BBY, but the Old Republic actually started in 25,000 BBY. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there.
Just a little bit. And for those of you who don't know, BBY stands for Before the Battle of Yavin.
Oh, yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Also,
it's okay.
We kind of made a little mistake last time. And I...
Do tell.
We were talking about how the guard, Padme's guard, mentions that someone from Alderaan is in the running to become the next chancellor. And we said it's funny how they pronounced it wrong, and how it's actually pronounced Alderaan. And I went and watched episode 4, just the first little bit, and it is pronounced Alderaan, and I realized I just figured we should probably correct ourselves here before someone else does.
But I'm sure everybody pronounces it different within the galaxy, so...
Oh yeah, I think so. And you know what really threw me off was that meme that went around a few years ago that said, if you're trying to date a girl and she doesn't like Star Wars, you're looking in Alderaan places.
Yes.
So I think that's where I got my names kind of skewed.
It's okay, I forgive you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Back on topic.
Okay, one more note for the council meeting. I just said sneaky Sheevs putting Anakin and Padme together. Like, this man knew.
Yes, I completely skipped over that.
Because I'd forgotten how they got put on guard duty for Padme, and I was like, oh yeah, the whole dark mastermind behind the whole thing did it, of course.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Just seeing his play. They just go with it. They're just like, yep. They were together like 10 years ago. She trusts them. It'll work out perfect. And she was just like, yes, it will.
Yeah, and, okay, back to the elevator scene. They get to the top of the elevator, and it's Jar Jar Binks who meets them.
I know. I thought the same thing while watching. I was like, he's still here.
No, so actually what I thought, when he walks up, I was like, wait, Jar Jar Binks failed his life debt that he had to Qui-Gon.
Like, I mean, technically, Qui-Gon failed him.
Well, because he saved Jar Jar, which means that Jar Jar had to really help him out until he was able to return the favor. And when Qui-Gon was fighting Maul, where was Jar Jar? Where was he?
You want Jar Jar Binks to fight Darth Maul?
Oh, no, No, I definitely do not want Jar Jar there in that scene. I just thought it was funny. I was just like, oh yeah, he failed that.
You would want the true master of the Sith to fight Maul?
Oh, Darth Jar Jar. Of course he wouldn't be there.
I've become more open-minded. I've become more open-minded, see?
Wow, I've almost turned you, and it's only been 2 episodes prior to this.
No, I'm just being more welcoming to your silly theories.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So, we're finally out of the elevator.
Right.
Anakin has been in there trying to hype himself up. Obi-Wan's tried to calm him down. As soon as he sees Padme, after we see Jar Jar again for some godforsaken reason.
For some reason.
Anakin gets shut down right out of the gate. Poor kid. Like,
so fast.
You know, it's like whenever you're younger, you know, you're getting ready for a date, or, you know, you want to ask out a nice, you know, pretty girl. You think she's out of your league, and immediately she's just like, yeah, we're best friends. We should definitely hang out. And you're just like, oh, man.
Ah, dang. Oh, Annie, you'll always be the little boy from Tatooine.
That hurt me.
Yeah, poor guy. But, you know, he pulls it together in the end.
He does. Spoilers, Elijah. Spoilers.
Spoilers. I'm so sorry.
So, after he gets shut down, Obi-Wan quickly deflects and, you know, points to the matter of hand of why they're there. And immediately we see the tensions of Anakin and Obi-Wan and their rift as master and apprentice, and how...
Right.
You know, it kind of harkened back to, in the first movie, between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon a little bit. But Anakin's is obviously much more large in scale, you know what I mean? I mean, we saw Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon disagree, but not like this, where it's...
Right.
Anakin's actively bickering with his master in front of everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was just a very uncomfortable scene. Like, I don't know how that made you feel, but I was just very uncomfortable the entire time.
No, it is. It's like when you're hanging out with a group of friends and they have to discipline their kid in front of you.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of awkward because, you know, you and the kid are playing, but then, like, he takes it too far or something, so the parents have to step in and they get in trouble, and you're like, sorry, dude.
Oops. Sorry, kiddo.
Yep.
Yeah. I forget we're adults sometimes and that we have adult friends.
No, I refuse to grow up. I'll still always be that little boy from Tatooine.
Same.
So, they get done arguing. Obi-Wan finally puts Anakin back in his place.
Right.
And Obi-Wan kind of encourages the whole Padme-Anakin relationship from the start, right then. Because Anakin's standing there freaking out about, oh my gosh, it's been years since we've seen each other, and she still sees me as that little boy. I'm not a little boy anymore. I'm a grown man now. And he's talking to Jar Jar for some reason. Jar Jar is the world's confidant.
Of course. Can trust Jar Jar with any secrets.
Of course. He gives them all away. Why couldn't you trust them with him?
Of course.
And Obi-Wan, good guy Obi-Wan, and again, it's that whole father-brother struggle relationship that they have. He goes, you know, I could sense that she was happy to see us.
Right. Oh, and Jar Jar actually did have something nice to say there. I completely forgot. He was like, I haven't seen her this happy in a long time.
That's
But,
true
you know,
as well.
In his Jar Jar ways.
In his Jar Jar ways. Oh my. I don't hate Jar Jar. You know I like Jar Jar, but
I know. I don't hate Jar Jar either. He's just annoying.
he's just there. I think he's that character you love to hate.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like he played a much more important role in the first one, and it probably would have been okay if he didn't come back, but then, I mean, he also plays such an important role later, which we'll get to.
Yes. So a design thing. You know I look for the whole design thing in movies and stuff, and those little details that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Whenever Anakin and Obi-Wan are out on the balcony later that night, whenever they walk in off the balcony, the window comes down from above them to close off the balcony. Like it slides down. It's curved glass, but it
Yeah.
slides down from the top. And I just thought that was like so neat. Like that's what the future is to me, even though it's basically just a car window essentially.
Right. Yeah, it's still really neat.
I like
Okay. So, next we have the assassination attempt on Padme's life. And can we just talk about the order of people trying to assassinate Padme? So either it goes from Palpatine, or Newt Gunray, you could look at it either way, who orders Count Dooku to kill Padme, who then orders Jango Fett to do it, who then orders Zam Wesell, however it's pronounced, to do it, who she
Yes.
sends a droid, who then sends the Cahoon's worms. I'm probably pronouncing that name wrong, but like, just how many people they just kept passing it down the line.
I'm just blown away by how much research you did for that 20-second speech.
Listen, I only needed to look up two names.
But I liked it. It was fun.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I think it's funny, how many people got sent. Like, I understand Count Dooku hiring Jango Fett, but the fact that Jango Fett hired someone else, who then even didn't do it herself, I just think it's funny.
Right. No, it is like a really long line of people for something so simple.
Right.
I mean, not that an assassination attempt is simple, not that I know, but
I hope not.
I would imagine it's fairly simple. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Now
and
I
the
sound
reason-
like a creepy murderer.
No, I know. Just to clarify, HouseDog is not a murder, as far as I know.
Thank you.
Okay. So, and the reason I said it's either Palpatine or Newt Gunray is because Newt Gunray says stuff later in the film about, why isn't she dead? So it makes it look like he was the one who ordered Count Dooku to do it. But then on the other hand, Palpatine's been trying to get rid of Padme for a long time.
I think the ship blowing up, I think that was Palpatine for what she did in the first movie.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think he was like, oh, you're going to throw a wrench in my plans again? I don't think so. Welcome to Coruscant. Time for your ship to blow up.
But then on the other hand, I don't think he himself was ever trying to kill her. I think he really was trying to scare her off the planet. So that I think Jar Jar was always a part of his plan.
Yeah, scaring her with bombs on her plane.
Yeah,
Just harmless bombs, right?
just harmless bombs. But I mean, she's used this tactic of using doubles before. I think Palpatine would probably know that she was using a double again.
Right, but I don't think he would have thought that she was on a completely separate starfighter.
That is a good point.
Like, that's pretty ingenious right there.
Yeah. Well, okay, Jar Jar wasn't with them. So now that I think about it, even if she did die on the ship, it would have moved to Jar Jar.
I
So
just
either
want to
way-
point out all of your plans for anything that involves Padme include Jar Jar. Why is Jar Jar your grand scheme of everything, Elijah? It's either he's leading the Sith or he is the ultimate political machine.
Okay, so listen, I will die on this hill that Jar Jar was supposed to be a Sith Lord. I will take this theory to my grave. But ignoring that theory, I really do believe that Palpatine was trying to manipulate the situation to get Jar Jar to be the one to vote to bring up the vote to get him into power. Because he knows that Jar Jar is stupid and easily manipulated, while Padme, on the other hand, is incredibly intelligent. And I don't think she would have, even the relationship she has with Palpatine, I don't know if she would have brought up the vote to give him emergency powers.
I
So, I mean,
agree, because she, even in the first one, it's not like she really trusted him or thought that he could bring an end to things.
Right, and she would have known that it would have been to form an army, and even as they get to Geonosis, she says that we're not going to start a war here, like, we're going to try and solve this through conversation and talk it out, basically.
Again, if you watch Clone Wars, Padme has quite a few arcs within that series about her, I don't know about her political career.
Right, yeah.
And her constantly trying to get them out of the war by demilitarization and pulling back and trying to find a way to solve things diplomatically without losing who they are and countless more troops.
Yeah,
So,
and she's been against the war since the beginning.
well, not just the war, but the entire funding of the clone army and creating a grand army for the Republic.
Right, yeah.
Oh my gosh, if we gotten off topic.
I'm so sorry. Where were we? We were talking about her assassination.
Yes, and I love that Obi-Wan Kenobi, the master of cool, just jumps out of the window. We wonder where Anakin gets his ideas from. That right there is the epitome of Anakin's personality.
Right, because later, I mean, Anakin jumps out of the speeder, and Obi-Wan's like, I hate when he does this. After he jumped out of a window.
Right, they kill some worms. Yeah, they kill some worms. They see the droid. Immediately, Obi-Wan's like, the only way to do this, jump out of the window.
Which is also after him saying, like, their whole argument earlier was over the fact that if they were there to guard her or to find her assassin. And Obi-Wan was very strongly, we're just here to guard. And then the assassin shows up and he jumps out the window after them.
Right.
Or the droid, technically, but
But the droid
You know
would
what I
lead them
mean.
back to who
right.
did
yeah.
it. Yes. But you also see their teamwork there, because even though Obi-Wan does just jump out of a window, immediately Anakin's like, okay, I need to go find a speeder and go look for my master because he's on the trail. So you
Right,
see their
yeah.
synergy as apprentice and master.
They work extremely well together.
Right. But something I noticed the entire movie was how many times Obi-Wan calls Anakin his young apprentice or my young Padawan or, you know, any type of variation of that. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's necessarily like a put down or something like that, but he has to constantly remind Anakin that he's not the one calling the shots.
Right. Right. Because, I mean, in Clone Wars and Episode 3, Anakin is a Jedi Knight.
Yes.
And so, I can't remember if Obi-Wan is a master by the time Clone Wars starts, but at least at the beginning, they are on equal grounds. But at this point, he is just still his Padawan, and Obi-Wan is in charge, and Anakin needs to remember he's gotta respect his elders.
Yes, he does. So they're in the chase at this point between them and Zam, and Anakin flies into power couplings. And Obi-Wan
Right.
says the line, "How many times have I told you not to fly into power couplings?" But I want to point out, with Anakin building pods, he knows not to fly into power couplings. Because in the first
Right.
episode, he has to tell Jar Jar, "Hey, don't put your hand in the power coupling or else it'll go numb for hours." And then he just does it anyways.
Which, maybe... Right, and that is a lot more electricity being generated than from the pod racer. Maybe the Force helped them not go as numb or help them recover quicker, but yeah, that's a really good point.
Anakin just does what he does.
Anakin does what he does.
So Anakin is on top of Zam's ship. Do you remember whenever you were a kid watching this movie, and DVDs weren't as crystal clear then, but how creepy Zam's face was whenever you see her like change into her true form, the alien face,
Yeah.
and then back? That
Yeah.
that still gives me the willies for some reason. I don't know why.
No, me too. Me too.
Is there anything else you want to say about the chase scene until we get to leading into the bar and the bar scene itself?
No, I think that's all my notes for that.
Oh, actually, I have one more thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, Zam's ship crashes. She starts to run into the bar. And Obi-Wan just calmly parks the speeder and starts
Like a
jogging.
civilized gentleman.
The civilized gentleman that he is. He's like,
Yeah.
we have plenty of time. Anakin's running through the streets trying to catch her, and Obi-Wan's just like, I need to find a parking space around here somewhere. I don't want to have to run too far, but I do
Right.
need to stretch.
After Anakin and Zam literally just crashed.
Into the middle of the street, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're walking into the bar. Anakin and Obi-Wan finally catch up to each other, and we get the line, "I feel like you're going to be the death of me."
Oh, I know. That broke my heart.
It hurts. It hurts every
really
time.
did. Yeah.
So I remember you mentioned in last episode that we don't get to see pod racing again in any of the movies. But you, sir, are wrong.
Was there pod racing on one of the screens?
Once again, my paying attention to the background instead of the main scene and what's going on has paid off.
Okay.
So now
I really was watching this. I was looking for pod racing.
I know you were, but you didn't find it because I am the eagle eye and yet you are the apprentice, Anakin.
So, okay, there's the robot football.
There
and
is.
Then there, to the right of that, was a kind of like weird, almost two-legged creature, like race, and they were moving really slow. It reminded me a lot of like a snail race. Obviously not that slow, but
Those were Womp Rats.
okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I knew I'd seen them somewhere before. And then to the left of that, to the left of the robot football, was another sport. But I know that wasn't pod racing. So where did I miss it?
It wasn't pod racing?
Was it pod racing?
Elijah, my dear friend, I think you need to watch the movie again.
Oh no. Okay.
Because
I'm gonna
it
go
was
watch that scene
indeed-
right now.
It was indeed your beloved pod racing that you said we never get to see again. See, but I kind of pulled a snake move on you. I knew, because much like you, most of the movies are burned into my brain forever. And I knew that there was pod racing in the background of this one.
Dang it. I will never rise from the ashes of my shame.
I kept it in my pocket for this episode.
To roast me?
I did. I'm not going to lie to you.
Dang. Okay. I'm not gonna lie. I'm looking it up right now. I believe you, but I just can't believe I missed it.
You even named the screen that it was on. It's the far left one.
I remember looking at it. Like, I was specifically looking for pod racing, and I guess I just missed it.
You did. Very much so, my friend.
Dang. Pretty sure my family is going to disown me after that.
I've already disowned you for many reasons, but mostly that one.
Oh, okay. Well, are we still going to do the podcast, or, like, is it over?
I forgive you, but just for today.
Just for today? Okay.
The wonderful death stick scene. You know how many times in my life I wish someone came up to me and told me to go home and rethink my life?
A lot?
Many times. The older I get,
23.
the older I get, the more I think, boy, do I wish I had an Obi-Wan Kenobi next to me at the bar saying, you want to go home and rethink your life.
Aw. HouseDog, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Do I need to tell you that?
I don't... No. You're just a silly
Okay.
Sith Lord. I don't trust you anyways.
Who can't even see the pod racing?
Yes, his beloved pod racing that he's been going on and on about. And it finally
it was
reappears.
Like 10 minutes. It was like 10 minutes.
It reappears.
Okay. I just brought it up on my phone. Let's see if there really is pod racing back there.
There is. I'm telling you there is.
Yep, you're right. You're right. That's... Okay, so I realized why I didn't see it. So I went middle, right, left in watching, like checking each screens.
Mm-hmm.
And about halfway through the scene, the left screen that's actually showing the pod racing pauses and to like show scores, and that's what I saw, and that's why it didn't click that it was pod racing. In my defense,
If these are the excuses you have to tell yourself,
this is how I'm gonna sleep at night.
that's fine. I know it's more of just your Dark Lord wizardry.
Dark Lord wizardry, for sure.
So the cinematography of the bar scene where Anakin is looking for Zam is what we're led to believe due to the camera angles and how it's being shot is behind Anakin with her gun out, about to kill Anakin. And
Right.
It shoots Obi-Wan just leaning at the bar, having a drink, hanging out, doing his Obi-Wan thing. And
Of
then
course.
right before Zam is about to pull the trigger and we think Anakin's going to get shot in the back, Obi-Wan turns around and in Obi-Wan fashion cuts somebody's arm off at the bar.
Can't have Obi-Wan if he's not cutting people's arms off in bars.
No. But just the whole way that scene is shot is genius.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we also get a cameo from our good friend Anthony Daniels, who plays C-3PO, right after Zam loses her arm.
Poor Zam. I don't think I've ever noticed that.
Yes, the camera pan right after they cut her arm off, it kind of pans around the bar to different patrons, and he
Yeah.
is right there in the center of your screen.
Good for him. I'm glad he got an out of C-3PO appearance.
Yes, me too. It's always good to see
Yeah.
Anthony Daniels.
Definitely.
He is a delight.
Always.
You need to write more notes, my friend. I'm tired of carrying this podcast on my shoulders, MotherGoose.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Like I said, so I have a lot of notes for like the beginning and a lot of notes for the end. but I had an assignment to finish, so I didn't write as many notes for the middle.
Well, you see, this is the problem. We're only like 10 minutes into the movie.
Oh, and we are 40 minutes into the podcast, so this is gonna be a long one.
And that's the fun of it.
How many what page are you on in your notes?
We're about 2/3 of the way through page 1. Actually, we're almost at the end of page 1.
Cool. And I'm already about halfway through my notes. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So, next big deal we got. Anakin is always being pushed to the Chancellor somehow, either through the Chancellor or through the Jedi themselves. Because after they report back to the Jedi Council about the assassination attempt, well, them finding the assassins, I believe it's Mace Windu, I may be wrong, says that Anakin should go talk to the Chancellor because Anakin's being given the mission to escort Senator Amidala home to Naboo.
Right.
So Mace suggests that they should go inform the Chancellor of this, and it's like, guys, come on, you're just pushing him more towards the person who wants him the most.
Yeah, I really think it's the Force. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Palpatine is obviously manipulating the situation so that him and Anakin can grow closer, but I also think it's just the Force in general pushing them together.
I think Palpatine should be a life coach. He would be the best life coach ever. Because he's talking he's talking to Anakin, and within that 5 to 15-second scene of them being together, he tells Anakin how amazing he is about 7 times, and how he's going to be the greatest Jedi of all. He's so strong. He's already planted that seed of distrust in the Jedi. He tells him, oh, so they've finally given you your own assignment.
Yeah. No, he is doing everything he possibly can to get Anakin on his good side.
I want Sheev Palpatine to come be my life coach.
Same. But let's just remember, non-spoilers, what happened to Anakin having Sheev as a life coach. I don't know if that's a path you want to walk, my friend.
Well, it's either Sheev or Darth Jar Jar leading me, and I've seen how that's worked out for you.
Darth Jar Jar is the true leader of the Sith, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Oh my. So Anakin is about to escort Padme home, and we get the outside look of Padme's apartment, and there's a little robot putting in a new pane of glass in the window.
Somebody's got to do it.
I just love these little moments. They're my favorite. The window coming down to close off the balcony. The little robot fixing the window from the accident the night before. It's just like the people that worked on this movie really thought of everything, because things just don't get fixed in real life. And it really helps bring the movie into kind of our world. You know what I mean? Where you could be like, oh, obviously, if a window breaks, somebody's got to come and fix it.
Somebody's
just like in real life.
Yeah.
Just because it's a robot doesn't make it any more or less real than someone coming to fix your window today if it gets busted out.
Yeah, there's just so much just love and care that went into just every little detail.
Yes. And finally, here, Darth Jar Jar is left in charge to be the representative of Naboo while Senator Amidala goes into hiding with Anakin.
I'm telling you, it was all Palpatine's plan to get Jar Jar there, because, again, he knows Senator Amidala would not vote or bring up the vote to give him emergency powers.
Yes.
Yeah.
But why leave Jar Jar in charge? Why? How is Jar Jar our best bet in this whole galaxy? On the whole planet of Naboo, Jar Jar is our number one?
Right. And so, okay, at this point, he's just kind of there as a little stand-in. It's not till a little later that they're like, oh, we need somebody to give Sheev's emergency powers.
I mean, I know I've spent pretty much this entire episode hating on Jar Jar, but I love how they used, like, realistically, I love how much they used him. He's the perfect scapegoat.
He really
because
is.
inside, he really does have a good heart, and he really does only want to do a good job and help Naboo. Quiet you, Sith Lord, with your deceit. Jar Jar really does have a heart of gold, and he really does just want what's best for Naboo and for the galaxy, and he tries his best to put himself in the place of Padme and think, you know, what would she do? She's a very independent, you know, strong-willed woman. She would want things to be brought to an end, maybe not no matter what the cost would be, but what's the easiest way to prevent suffering and to get us back to a place of somewhat normalcy.
Right. And like you said, he really has a good heart, and I think you're completely right. He was just trying to do what he thought Amidala would do. But poor guy, it's definitely the opposite of what she would have done.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Between
But no.
the scene of Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting earlier and what I call the creepy stare scene of Anakin and Padme about to go to Naboo, where the window's been fixed and they're inside the apartment, which one was more awkward for you?
Where she keeps saying, "Don't look at me like that."
I agree.
Oh, no, sorry. That was a question. Like, just making sure that's the scene you're talking about.
Yes.
But, yes, no, that was a lot more awkward because, like, no matter how he feels about her, he should have respected her when she asked him not to look at her like that.
Okay, but think about, you know, whenever you were younger, and Anakin probably hasn't had a whole lot of experience with girls at this point in his life.
I actually did want to bring that up because he probably has very, very little. I mean, he's still a teenager at this point. Nobody knows what they're doing as teenagers, especially when it comes to, like, dating.
Right, which is one of the big problems that a lot of critics have with Episode 2 and Hayden Christensen's portrayal of Anakin at this point. Even though Anakin is like 18, 19 years old at this point, I think people really need to think back to, you know, how they acted at 18 and 19. Like, of course he's a petulant child. He essentially is the greatest Jedi in the Order at this point, but he's constantly being held back. He knows that he can do better and exceed more and has more power than he's being led on to believe. And then he's trying to figure out his feelings for this woman that he hasn't seen in 10 years. On top of his feelings with his mother that we haven't gotten to yet, which I'm really excited to get to, his whole mom
Me too.
dichotomy in that. But how else would you want Anakin to act? Of course he's a petulant, whiny child, because he is a child.
He's still a child. Of course he wouldn't be this, like, smooth talking, like, super experienced with romance. He's got no experience.
No.
He's still a kid.
None. He's been hanging around Obi-Wan and all the other dudes in the Jedi Order, and they're just like, we gotta go train and stop telling yourself you're the best.
Yeah, and I think he also knows that even though he does pursue his feelings for Padme, he knows that it's wrong, and I'm sure that just adds on to kind of his awkwardness as well.
Right, but again, whenever you're that young, all of the wrong things are more fun than doing what you know is right.
Yeah, you're right.
Especially when a woman's involved. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
So, Anakin's creepy in conclusion.
Anakin is creepy. Again, just
But
a reminder.
It is excused.
The dialogue was inspired by Shakespeare and his plays and how overdramatic it is. We can debate later if that works or not, but at least there's a reason behind it.
But were his creepy stares Shakespearean or not?
I'm gonna go with yes. Okay, they were. I mean, they were very. Oh, like, don't get me wrong. I like Shakespeare. I like his plays, but they were very, very dramatic.
I'm sorry, that stare was just. It made my skin crawl.
Oh yeah, no, it made me completely uncomfortable, and I was very glad when it was over.
I was too. Again, they're finally making it onto the transport. And
Right.
another one of Padme's doubles. This time it's Dorme, because Corday's dead.
Of course.
Dorme, we see her cry, and she's obviously very scared. But in her line, she mentions she's not scared to die. She's scared for Padme dying.
Right.
Which I think is amazing. And one of the books that's been out for a minute now, it's about Padme and the handmaidens that she has. So you really get to see that relationship more. Mm-hmm. But you only get to see it a little bit in the movies. But I think this is one of those great moments where you really get to see how much these women know what they're doing and know what their job is and how okay with it they are that they might die so that Padme can continue to change the galaxy for the better.
Right, and it's she mentions it a little later. The people of Naboo loved her so much. I mean, they still do, but they loved her to the point where they were trying to change the Constitution so she could be queen longer.
Right. And we have Captain Typho and Obi-Wan watching them walk off. And,
Right.
you know, obviously Obi-Wan's worried about Anakin. But Captain Typho is more worried about what Padme's gonna do.
Right, that's one of my favorite lines in the entire movie.
It's definitely interesting because I would say that Padme calls more of the shots than Anakin does.
Oh yeah, especially later.
I think I know what you're referring to, and I have words, but we will get to that.
Okay.
I love Dexter Jettster so much.
Me too.
He reminds me
Me
of
too.
like just that cool uncle you have, you know, or somebody.
Right.
I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the right analogy to make, but obviously Dex and Obi are just old friends. I don't know the backstory of how they met. I'd love to know it. I'll have to research it.
too.
But they're in
Yeah.
the diner, and they're just. It's one of my favorite scenes because they're just hanging out. You get to see a more, like, relaxed, you know. Well, even though Obi-Wan is really relaxed most of the time,
Yeah.
you get to see him just hanging out with one of his friends and getting the information he needs.
Yeah. It's a casual conversation.
Right. And in that scene, we get one of my favorite lines from Dex, which is where he's explaining to him where the dart came from, and he says, I thought you Jedi would have, I don't know the exact line, I'm going to butcher it, but he says, I thought you Jedi would have more appreciation for the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
What a roast.
What a
roast.
But again, it goes back to the whole idea of, I would say one of the grand ideas of this movie, that the Jedi had just completely become blind to everything going on around them.
Right, yeah, and again, even though they still are a galaxy-wide organization, like, they really are falling from grace. Which, I've heard rumors, and I don't know how true they are, but it looks like Disney is going to be working on another trilogy set in the Old Republic era, where we can truly see the Jedi in their prime, and I really hope it's true because that sounds so good.
Yes, the High Republic times.
Yeah, so, okay, High Republic, that's actually it's going to be a group of, like, I don't know about games, books and comics for sure, and I think maybe some video games at some point, but no, this trilogy I'm talking about is, like, Old Republic. Yeah. Like Darth Revan, Darth Malak, maybe Darth Bane. I don't think they set an exact date on when it's happening, but sometime in the actual Old Republic.
Right.
Anyway, I'm just excited to see the Jedi in their prime before the Dark Times.
Before the dark times, yes.
Anyway, okay. Did you have anything more to say about the diner scene?
No, actually, I was going to move on to the next one if you were okay with that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Go ahead.
Anakin and Padme are on the transport, having a meal, and Anakin mentions his creepy little dreams he's been having about Padme. And
Yeah.
I asked myself, why, Anakin, why? Why would you
Why?
tell a girl you're in love with that you've been dreaming about her for 10 years? Or,
Yeah,
or
that's-
having dreams about her, more rather.
That's more like later, after you're together, you know she likes you. It's kind of romantic at that point. But at this point, you've just been acting like a creep the whole time.
Yes, after his creepy stares, now he mentions that he's been dreaming about you.
Yeah. But, spoilers, it works in the end.
It does work.
I just choose to believe that a lot of the reason that they fell in love is because of things that happened off screen.
Well, we see
don't get me
a lot
wrong.
more of their relationship in Clone Wars.
Oh, yes, but what I mean is between when the movie starts and when the movie ends.
Right, it is very... You don't get a whole lot of in-between stuff.
Right.
It's kind of just like, okay,
So-
here they are, and then, boom, Anakin and Padme.
Yeah. So, obviously there is a lot of time they spend off screen together, and I do think they have some good non-creepy moments together as well, but, I think sometimes people just look at the creepy moments and they're like, that's all it is.
All right. Obi-Wan is now searching for the planet Kamino, but the archives don't show it. So,
Right.
and this is
And the-
probably one of my top 2 favorite Yoda quotes of the entire series. So, obviously, Obi-Wan doesn't have Qui-Gon anymore, goes to see his old master, Yoda,
Of course.
and Yoda's teaching a class of younglings, and one of the kids figures out that obviously, since it's not in the archives, someone must have deleted it. And Yoda
Right.
gives us, like I said, it's my top 2 favorite Yoda lines. Truly wonderful, the mind of a child is. I love that line.
Yes, that really is an amazing line. I think one of my favorites is just a little before that when he says, "Lost a planet Obi-Wan has. How embarrassing."
Right, that's a good one too.
Yeah, I think both of those lines are probably in my top 5, maybe top 10. I had a point there. Something about the archives getting deleted. I don't know. I just feel like Yoda should have been maybe a little more concerned about it.
I mean, he was, but I feel like we gotta cut him some slack.
Yeah, and again, we don't know what happened off screen.
So much is going on in their world,
Right.
and we only get to see a portion of it, or else this movie would be 10 hours long, which I would be okay with.
I would too.
Even though episode 2 is not one of my favorites.
Okay, so I went in and I was really thinking about episode 2, and I'm like, I was trying to think. I was like, how much do I like episode 2? And I was like, really debating on how good it was, but I actually really enjoyed it a lot more than I remember enjoying it. Like, I was expecting, because I really was thinking, this is probably like my 8th favorite.
Wow, that low?
Well, I don't know. I just remember not liking it as much. Like, I still really like it, but then I just enjoyed watching it a lot more than I remember. Like, it was a lot better than I remember. And I think part of that is just, I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be, but there's just so much hate towards the prequels. Sometimes I think when I don't watch it for a while, I just start thinking about those comments and I'm like, oh, maybe it isn't that good. And then I watch it and I'm like, wait, it is that good.
I enjoyed 2 a lot for the politics of this movie.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll talk about the ending. It's definitely one of my favorites.
Yes.
Okay.
We're back on Naboo.
Back on Naboo.
We're in the Queen's chamber.
Right.
Anakin gets humbled by everyone in this movie. He literally gets shot down by everyone.
Right.
And I still didn't look his name up. The guy with white hair on Naboo. You know
yeah,
who I'm
that
talking
guy.
about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Santa Claus man.
Yeah.
He asked Anakin for his opinion on what they should do with Padme. And immediately, Padme is like, oh, Anakin's not a master. He's still a Padawan. Don't worry about his opinion. And just gets, like, wrecked.
Right.
Absolutely wrecked.
Like, I do think that he needed to be humbled. But on the other hand, that was probably just so embarrassing, especially from the girl he's in love with.
Right. But she was trying to put a lot of distance in between that relationship.
Right. And she also, I think another line that's really stuck out to me is she tells him, like, I know the planet. Like, I know what we're going to do. Like, this is my plan. This is what we're doing.
Right. You're just here because you have to be.
Right.
I find it quite interesting. Are you ready to move on? I'm sorry, I
Yes.
did not ask you if you're ready for the next scene.
No, definitely ready.
Obi-Wan is on the rainy planet of Kamino.
Oh, Camino.
And Sifo Dyas, the master that apparently ordered the clones, was killed almost 10 years ago. Which
How
at the same time,
convenient.
yes, exactly. At the same time was whenever Anakin was brought into the order.
Right.
It's almost like it happened at the same time.
It's almost like somebody was planning it.
Almost. That would be such an idea, wouldn't it?
It was such an idea. Now, okay, something that really stuck out to me was the Kaminoans' eyes. They're literally like galaxies.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, they were just really beautiful. Like, I remember we were talking about how, like, unique the Newt Gunray species. I know we named them last time. I can't remember off the top of my head, but just how unique their
Nemodians.
eyes were. Nemodians, yeah. How unique their eyes were. But, like, the Kaminoans are just on a whole nother level. It's literally like a little galaxy within their eyes.
No, their eyes are very cool. But I think the Kaminoans are dirty, dirty people.
Dirty. Yeah, how dare they build an army?
Exactly. Well, they're war profiteers is all they are.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're not the best of all the species.
Well, again, I know I keep bringing up Clone Wars, but if you watch Clone Wars, you will learn the Kaminoans are dirty, dirty people.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
Within that scene of Obi-Wan speaking to Lama Su, the Prime Minister of Kamino, we get to see Obi-Wan's character build again, to where they think that he's supposed to be there, but really he's just trying to get information on what's going on.
Right.
And we see this really future Obi-Wan who's able to talk himself out of pretty much anything. I mean, his nickname is the Negotiator.
Of course, yeah.
But in this movie, he's still unrefined.
He's still figuring it out.
He's still figuring out how to be that, very smooth, eloquent Obi-Wan that we know later.
Right.
Who can literally talk his way out of any situation possible.
Yeah. He was a little, like, I think he played it off well, but he was definitely a little awkward. He was still figuring it out.
Right, but again, it's that character development that whenever you look at things in the grand scale, you're able to see this is how these people became who they are later.
Right, exactly. You don't want a character that's just good at everything right away.
Yes. Are you ready to move on back to Naboo, my friend?
Yes, very much so.
Great, because one of my favorite parts is coming.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily one of my favorite parts, but one of my favorite scores.
Got it, yeah.
Anakin and Padme are outside in this courtyard looking at the ocean, or this lake.
Mm-hmm.
And my first point is, how does Anakin's flirting work? I mean, you got the creepy touching, the creepy words, and
I don't
she goes for it. She goes for it.
Again, like I said, they do have some good moments, like, when they're running through the field, and, before he mentions, they're sitting, they're kind of having a picnic. That honestly seemed like it was going well until he mentions...
Well, that happens after this, my good friend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I just think it was going okay until he mentioned, a dictatorship.
Yes, that's what happens in this next scene.
Yeah.
Well, no, then we flash back to Kamino, then we're in the meadow. So you're ahead.
I am so sorry. Please forgive me.
Again, you're on very thin ice this episode.
Don't kick me off the podcast. I work so
okay.
hard.
It's okay. I couldn't kick you off. You literally do everything.
Yeah, that is true.
So my favorite score of all time happens while they're kissing across the stars.
Right. It's their first kiss.
And I love that song. I have it on my phone. It's beautiful.
It is a fantastic score. And again, poor Anakin gets shut down again.
I mean, he still got him a little smoochy smooch.
He still did get a smooch. This is true.
So I'd say it was a win.
Yeah.
I would count it as a win. I didn't get to kiss Padme, so he's ahead of me.
That is true. That is very true. I'm so sorry, my friend.
You're just trying to get on my good side.
I would never.
But yes, we do get to the meadow right after this scene. And how awesome does all the waterfalls look behind them?
So
And I know they're fake. I know they're fake. I know none of it's real.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you're just like, this is awesome.
It really is. So this one came out in 2002. Again, just like, I know it gets memed on a lot for its CGI, but some of the things like that look better than some of the CGI we see now.
Yes.
Like, I was watching Enola Holmes, which just came out on Netflix a few days ago, and there was a scene of, like, a train going across a bridge, and then it was lowering. It was like a camera pan down into London, and it was very obviously CGI, and it just looked really bad. And I'm like, it's 2020. Like, I literally was watching episode 2, like, an hour before we recorded this, and I was like, this looked better than the scene I just watched in Enola Holmes.
But yes, Anakin the dictator.
Anakin the dictator.
That, oof.
Like, that literally, like, not only is that just wrong in general, it literally, he's trying to impress this girl. It's literally against everything she believes in.
But it's, I don't think it's him trying to impress her. I think that's really what he thinks.
Oh, yeah, no, without a doubt.
When you think about his upcoming and where he came from, obviously he would want one strong person over everything. And it's not even like I don't think he wants a true dictatorship. I just think he wants problems to be solved quickly and efficiently.
Right. And in a democracy, things can really get bogged down.
Right.
Yeah. And so sometimes it is like, it would be nice. Like, I wish there was just one person who would just quickly make decisions. But in situations like that, it's very easy for that person to become corrupt and start to only think about themselves.
It's almost like giving emergency powers to someone.
Almost like giving emergency powers to somebody.
I think we're connecting dots here, my friend.
I think so. I don't know if we have the whole thing mapped out, but some dots are definitely connecting.
We're getting close.
I think we're going to crack this case before the end of the podcast.
I wouldn't venture that far. We may have to call upon Darth Jar Jar to lead us.
Oh, yes. Darth Jar Jar, please give us wisdom.
But what about knowledge?
Ah, yes, because there's a difference that the Jedi don't really understand.
We're just having too much fun today.
We really are. Okay, let's think. We're probably about halfway through the film at this point. We're making progress.
Good progress. I'm having a great time.
Me too.
So, back on Camino, I like that we get to see Jango Fett's armor before Obi-Wan does.
Right.
In the closet. It's barely shown to us in the corner there. But I think it's cool that we get to see it before Obi-Wan does, because Obi-Wan faces around back that way in the scene where he meets Jango Fett for the first time.
Right. And he does end up seeing it, but it is nice as an audience member to get to kind of learn information.
Right, before our characters do.
Yeah.
I do have EU things for you.
Oh, I love EU things.
I do. Somehow I know some things.
Somehow it's almost like we've been friends for years.
Yes, but Jango and Obi-Wan are talking. Obi-Wan's questioning him, asking, how close he's gotten to Coruscant, trying to figure out if he's the one behind the assassination attempts. And Jango says that he was recruited by a man called Tyrannus on one of the moons of Bogdan.
Yep.
Which, for anyone out there that's played the old Bounty Hunter game, which explains how Jango Fett got brought into, all of the things going on in the galaxy and how he becomes a central part of it. I'm just going to go ahead and spoil the game for you. He goes through all these missions and stuff Jango Fett does, and finally he winds up on one of the moons of Bogdan, and he has to kill this fallen Jedi, which leads to Lord Tyrannus, or Count Dooku, who we later find out is the same person.
Right.
Recruits him to go to Camino to have his DNA extracted and become the blueprint for the clone army.
Right. Which Count Dooku and Jango Fett actually, maybe it is on this planet, but I know at some point they and a group of Mandalorians and a group of Jedi are in a battle. And obviously Count Dooku's fighting on one side, Jango Fett's fighting on the other, and a lot of Jedi are killed. And this is where Count Dooku really gets the idea to use Mandalorians, because he sees them in action, killing Jedi.
But Jango Fett is a pretender.
Right.
He is not a Mandalorian.
That guy.
But I just had that quick tidbit of information because I knew about the video game.
Yeah, I actually haven't played it, but I want to.
It's really interesting. It's very hard to play because the controls don't really go over very well to the newer generation of consoles.
Yeah.
But it's still a very fun game.
I'm sure.
One thing I will never understand is Anakin blaming Padme for the kiss. So now they are in this dark room with a fireplace. It feels really awkward to me. I don't know why that scene does, but it does. And Anakin blames her for it.
That was a very mutual kiss. I don't think it was really either one of their faults, but you're right. He should not be blaming her.
Right, he goes on this whole spiel, which is very Shakespearean of him. You know, he talks about how he's haunted by the kiss she gave him and how he hopes it doesn't become a scar. And I'm like, geez, Anakin, cry me a river, bud.
Oh, that guy. Again, he's 18 and 19. He doesn't really know how to talk to girls. I mean, I'm 23. I don't know how to talk to girls.
I would agree.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
I meant for myself. I meant for myself as well, not just you. Oh, man.
Yeah. No, I know what you meant. But no, I just think that, I mean, it's not their most awkward interaction, but it made me a little uncomfortable too.
It's just the whole setting. It's like she's wearing this dress that's like very tight on her, and Anakin keeps staring at her, and they're staring at each other at one point, and then he goes on that big spiel about how she's done this to him and it's her fault, and I don't know.
He could have very easily requested that some other Jedi went.
But why would he? He's been dreaming about her for 10 years, Elijah.
Exactly. So it's not her fault. Like, he got himself into this situation. Well, I mean, Palpatine put them together, but
I thought the Force put them together, Elijah. Who is in charge here?
And, okay, I think it's both. Well, okay, I said that the Force was pulling Palpatine and Anakin together. But I also do believe the Force has a hand in Padme and Anakin getting together, because it does lead to the birth of Luke and Leia.
Very true.
Anyway.
We flash back to Camino now. Obi-Wan is sending out a transmission back to Coruscant to tell them that he found Jango Fett, and he's very suspicious of him, so he gets the instruction to bring Jango Fett back. And another cool little side note I noticed is that Obi-Wan sends the transmission to, he calls it the care of the old folks home. I never caught that before. It makes sense because Yoda is, hundreds of years old. But I just thought it was funny that Yoda lives in the old folks home of the Jedi Temple.
Yeah. Poor Yoda.
And then poor Obi-Wan during the Jango Fett fight. He just can't catch a break, man.
He really can't. It was a good fight. Like, the whole chase all the way to Geonosis is good. But you're right. He just can't catch a break.
No. And then in the next scene, we have the return of Watto.
I really like, because obviously this is how it would really be. Just like, not just Watto, but really everyone who used to know Anakin as a boy not recognizing him, and it taking them a second to be like, oh, little Annie.
Right. No, I do like that he didn't immediately know who he was.
Right.
I just like that Watto came back.
Me too. What a guy.
Finally, the chase scene in the asteroid field.
One of the best scenes. Like, one of the best space chase scenes.
Right. We talked about, sound last time. And again, I gotta bring it up. The sound of the seismic charges in space is so cool.
Yeah.
Because we get that complete quiet, which we know space has no sound.
Right.
And then once the seismic charges go off, it has that really deep bass note, and you just get all the sound of everything happening. It's one of my favorite sounds of Star Wars.
Me too. Which...
But Boba Fett's a little weirdo.
Boba Fett was a little weirdo, and I definitely see him as young Boba Fett. Like, sometimes with prequels, you're like, oh, like, that doesn't seem like the character we know and love, but I definitely see young Boba Fett as becoming Boba Fett, if that makes sense.
Right, you can see his progression is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I agree. Do you have anything else to say about the asteroid scene?
No, and if I remember right, next is Tatooine.
Look at this guy.
I know.
Do you have the movie pulled up right now?
No, I don't. But I did just watch it. Like, I literally started it in enough time to have it finished by the time that we started recording the podcast. So it's still pretty fresh on my mind.
You are correct, my good friend. We do get to Tatooine, and we get to see Anthony Daniels again, but this time as the character we all know and love him, playing 3PO.
Yes. I was so excited when I saw 3PO. At first I was like, oh, there's a droid, and then it clicked who it was, and I was like, yes, my guy, you've returned. The prodigal son.
Which it is interesting, we get R2 right off the bat of the movie, and then it's not until that's
over halfway.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, 2/3 of the movie, we don't get to see our other beloved droid, 3PO.
Yeah. But it was good to see him. It was worth the wait.
It was. Along with the return of 3PO, we get the introduction to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Yeah? Yeah, which I always loved. Like, even as a little kid, like, who didn't really understand Star Wars, like, it clicked in my mind who those people were and how important they were later.
Right. I agree. It's like me constantly trying to connect things to Clone Wars.
Of course.
That small detail that interconnects the movies.
Yeah, it just makes them so much better.
It does. Those little details that I love.
And then we find out the sad news that Shmi has been kidnapped.
All she wanted was mushrooms.
All she wanted was mushrooms. And that just makes me so angry. Like, I just feel bad for her. Like, I understand she needed to die, but she had to live as a slave most of her life. She finally found love. She finally found a place where she was happy, where she was wanted, where she actually had value. And then she was kidnapped.
And tortured.
Just makes me so mad.
And it wasn't like it just happened. I think Anakin's stepdad said she'd been gone for about 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, and that there was no way she could possibly be alive.
I mean, he was almost right.
Yeah. So, okay, I do have a point to that. Do you have anything at their home before we get to the Tusken Raiders camp?
I have a few things, yes.
Okay, cool.
You should know me better by that.
I figured, that's why I asked before just bursting into the next section.
Right, so Anakin immediately gets up off the table. They ask him, where's he going? And he says, to find my mother. And he jumps on the speeder bike, and we get to hear Duel of the Fates while Anakin's riding through the Tatooine desert.
Yep.
Which, I love that you pointed it out last time, and I'll bring it up again, that Duel of the Fates is the representation of Anakin's constant inner battle within himself.
Right.
That was redundant, but his pull to the light and then his pull to the dark, and the situations he finds himself in where more times than not he goes to the other one.
Right. But no, I don't think it's redundant. I think it's a really good point that you brought that back up. Because our podcasts are kind of long, and, friendly reminders are good sometimes.
Right. And then right before we get into Anakin going to the Tusken Raider camp, Obi-Wan has infiltrated the droid factory in the mountains of Geonosis, and this is the line that you mentioned earlier where Viceroy brings up while Obi-Wan's spying on them that he wants Padme's head before this is all over.
Right, and that he said he wouldn't sign the treaty until he gets it.
Right.
And of course, we get the, real, true formation of the Separatists, the treaty being signed, the armies being combined.
Yes, and strengthened.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready to go to the Tusken Raider fight.
Okay. So I think I didn't realize, it didn't really click until we talked about it just a minute ago. Shmi's husband says there's no way she'd be alive. And obviously it's a really sad moment for Anakin, but I really think that the Force kept her alive so that he could see his mom one last time.
I have that note as well. I said Shmi held on until Anakin was able to get there.
Right. She knew he'd be coming.
Well,
now,
through his dreams, he was able to hear his mom and knew what was happening to her, which led him to make the decision to go back to his home planet.
Which I think what's happening to his mom and what happened to Padme and the dreams he had were a little different, because obviously later he has dreams of Padme dying. We'll get into that. But those were dreams of the future. I think I do think Anakin did have some dreams of his mom dying, but I think a lot of the dreams he was having were him actually experiencing the pain she was having in that moment. It was a present, not a future thing, if that makes sense.
Right. It was her being tortured at that time.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Shmi was reaching out to him.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
Yeah. I mean, she may not have realized it, but, everyone's got a connection to the Force.
Yes. All living things. It surrounds us, binds us, flows through us.
Exactly. And this scene actually made me cry. I'm not afraid to admit it. When she dies, I just kind of, again, everyone memes on how angry Anakin gets, and his later statement of "I killed them," which we'll get into. But I really kind of put myself in Anakin's shoes. If this was me, and this was my mom, and I got so angry and so sad, I actually cried.
Well, he hasn't seen her in 10 years.
Right.
He had issues before leaving, and now that's just been stewing for 10 years, and the first time he gets to see her, she's dead within 10 seconds.
Right, and it's just so sad as she's laying there and she's desperately trying to tell him that she loves him, but she can't.
Right, but whenever he first gets there and he holds her, she says, "Now I am complete."
Right, which is, basically the same thing.
Which, again, I think supports our theory that knowingly or not, she was reaching through the Force to tell Anakin that, she couldn't hold on anymore.
Right. Force healing would have been real handy at this moment.
It would have. Dang it. I guess we'll have to wait another, 6 movies.
Yeah, totally. And then obviously the slaughter of the Tusken Raiders begin.
Yes, and we get to hear our old friend Qui-Gon Jinn.
That literally was my next note about how Qui-Gon Jinn was, how hard he was trying to stop Anakin.
Right. Trying to teach him those lessons again.
Yeah. Which I really like how this is shot, because obviously we get to see a little bit of the violence, not a lot. And then it transitions to Yoda, who's sensing it through the Force, and we get to hear Qui-Gon in the background calling out to Anakin. I just think it was done really well.
Right. It sets up for later things in episode 3.
Okay, I gotta call out my sister real quick, because she's been listening to our podcast, and she says that she's considering starting a drinking game where she will take a drink every time one of us says right.
That's not fair.
I don't know. I've been really, I don't know if you've noticed, I've been trying, not to say right, to try and say, yeah, or I agree, or, something along
Or
the lines.
Something like, I don't know if you noticed, but...
Yeah. But I don't know. I felt like I would share that information with you. And I guess all our listeners.
I'll make sure that I agree with the word right from now on.
Every time I say right, you'll say right.
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 Back to our story, sir.
Back to our story. Sorry.
Obi-Wan has been caught, and enter Count Dooku. Throughout their entire interaction, Dooku tells Obi-Wan one lie. Everything else he tells him is the truth.
Right.
Which the Sith are wonderful at giving all the information and not using any form of deceit.
Yeah, which actually I originally wrote down. Dooku literally tells Obi-Wan that Darth Sidious is in control of the Republic, and they don't think to check Palpatine. And I know that's a big complaint that a lot of people have, but we'll get into that later. Obi-Wan, Mace, and Yoda all do have a conversation about it, why they don't look more into it, but we'll get into that when it actually comes up.
Right. I love how much Dooku reveals the truth to him, and through his own blindness, he just won't accept that he's telling him everything. He's giving him the whole plot.
The whole shebang. Everything that the Jedi would need to know to stop what's about to happen, he tells them. And they just don't listen.
If they would only respect the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
If only they'd respect it.
So, every time I watch this movie, seeing the factory feels like the first time for me.
Same.
As when
Without a doubt.
as when I saw it as a kid. I'm still filled with that sense of wonder and excitement of seeing the droid factory and all of the droids being built.
Yeah. And the struggles that they go through to get out.
But I don't know. That environment is just... I always thought it was so cool to see how everything moved and
How everything was made.
Right. You really get a look behind the curtain almost.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. And I'm glad that we got a peek into how they are made.
3PO's line kills me there, though. And if you're not paying attention to it...
Sorry, it took me a second to remember what line it was, but yes.
Where he says, machines making machines, like how what's the word I'm looking for?
I can't think.
It's like how preposterous or something, or how crude, like... And that's because even though 3PO doesn't look that great, he wasn't made by a machine. He wasn't mass-produced like everything else. He was handmade with time and love and care. So for 3PO, he can't understand how these machines are just mass produced whenever he was handmade by someone that loved him.
Right, exactly. It's I just looked it up. He says how perverse.
How perverse, yes.
Yeah. But no, I completely agree, because it is two extremely different situations. Like, C-3PO was made with, like you said, love and care, and he was made to help people. And these battle droids are being mass-produced to literally kill people.
But who does 3PO really help?
Who does he help?
3PO and Jar Jar are almost in the same boat, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. I love C-3PO, but he's also not the smartest. Well, okay. It's a different kind of intelligence, if that makes sense, because, like, he has a lot of technical knowledge. But
Does
when it comes,
he, though?
well, I mean, the man, I guess not the man, but the droid can speak, what, over 900 languages?
He's fluent in over, like, 9 million or billion
Or
different languages.
Okay, so I was a little off. But he knows a lot. But he doesn't have the emotional experience really to help people like he should. But I mean, that makes sense because he is a droid.
I think it's another example of knowledge versus wisdom.
Knowledge versus wisdom.
He holds all the knowledge, but yet has none of the wisdom.
Such an important theme of the film.
New
And
theory,
maybe-
C-3PO is actually a Jedi.
C-3PO is actually the true Grand Master of the Jedi. Yoda's just a temp.
Yes. Much like Palpatine for Jar Jar.
Exactly. We are not going to get any hate for saying that at all. Everyone's immediately going to agree with us.
I think it's a new running theory.
I think so. Anyway, so they get captured.
They do.
R2-D2 literally saves the day. Like, that just gave me so much anxiety, where Padme is in the big bucket and there's lava being poured into each one, and then it shows her, and then it cuts to the tube or whatever it is being opened, and lava or heated metal falling down into it. It just gives me a lot of anxiety. And of course, our boy R2, always there to save the day.
And what's 3PO doing? Nothing.
Nothing.
Getting his head knocked off.
That guy getting turned into not one, but now 2 different droids.
Right.
Okay. Do you have anything else to say before we move on to,
No, I'm ready to go to the arena. Let's get there.
Okay, good. I'm so excited to talk about this.
Me too. So, Anakin and Padme are in that little carriage.
Right.
So,
And
it's not okay for them to love each other unless they're dying.
okay, I really think in that, like, Padme, I really do believe she loves Anakin as much as he loved her. I mean, obviously later, but I think in this moment, she does. And throughout, you know, what we've been seeing, she really does love Anakin, but
She
she
just
knows they
wasn't
can't.
allowing herself.
Right. But in this moment, I think it's less of them, oh, it's okay now, more of them saying, hey, well, more Padme saying, I'm about to die, and I would just like to confess my feelings for the person I love, because he's about to die too.
Hypocrite. Hypocrite Padme.
She says it. Okay, she literally says it. Oh, what does she say? But it's something about how he says something about how their lives would be different, or they'd have to hide their lives. And she says something about how they're gonna die anyway. Like, this is the end.
Right.
I wish I'd wrote it down.
It's okay. I'm mad at her.
You're just mad that she ended up with Anakin and not you.
I am, and I'll never let it go.
You will die on this hill.
I will. And I have no problem.
You know, good for you. You fight for what you believe in.
Right. So, last movie, we had a bunch of Obi-Wan one-liners.
Of
And
course.
this one has quite a few as well. Not as high quality as the first film, I will say that. But
Yeah.
the good job line where Anakin says, you know, we came here to rescue you. And he just, you know, looks at his cuffs and them. Good job.
Or just a couple minutes later when Anakin says, what about Padme? And he says, looks like Padme's handling herself.
She's on top of things.
Yeah.
Right. Our boy Obi-Wan, he's always
He
got
is.
it.
And I am so excited for the Kenobi series, whatever it ends up being called. He actually was on a podcast recently, Ian McGregor. If you ever want to come on our podcast, that would be dope. Haha.
I don't think Ewan's
JK,
ever gonna come
unless-
here.
Hey, have hope. We're gonna get popular. Anyway, so
Rebellions are built on hope.
he's talking about the prequels and just how excited he is to get to play Obi-Wan again. And I think we can all agree that this is the right decision.
It is. Of the 3 beasts that are released in the arena, which one you like the best?
That is a question. Really hard question. Let me think about it for a second. Which one's your favorite?
I like the bull thing. He's pretty cool.
The bull thing is, yeah. I know for sure as a kid, I definitely liked the cat thing / rat the best. But I think as an adult, I don't know. Because, I mean, that's the first one to die.
Yeah, he gets messed up by the bull.
Yeah, I think maybe the mantis looking thing.
The Acklay.
Yeah.
He's the only one I know the name of, so don't be that impressed.
Cool. I just, you know, like, he does a lot more. Like, him and the bull, they both play active roles further in the film, while the cat rat just kind of gets stomped on.
Owned.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I still really like it, but I just don't know if it's my favorite anymore.
Plus, the cat rat hurts Padme, and I'm not about that.
Yeah, okay, I understand. I get it.
I'm glad he died.
Okay. So, then we get, I think, one of the most epic scenes of Mace Windu confronting Count Dooku and all.
This party's over.
And
How it's so cringy, but it's also like Mace Windu is just the coolest.
he really is. And not only that, but just like all the Jedi appearing out of the stands. Like,
Right.
everyone that was there in the stands, well, not everyone, but most of the people were Geonosians. And I just think it's funny that they're just like, oh, there's all these robed figures around that no one knows. They're probably friends.
Right, but you had Anakin and Obi-Wan and Padme, you know, killing all the animals in the arena. So would anybody really notice?
That is true. There was a lot going on at that moment.
There was quite a lot going on.
But no, I love it. I think it was one of the most amazing scenes in Star Wars. Just seeing all the Jedi together.
Right, but you don't get cooler than Mace Windu saying this party's over. Jango Fett rolling up, catching him on fire, him doing like a double backflip off the top balcony, like 300 feet in the air,
And
throwing his robe off.
And not only that, but he deflects at least 2 blaster shots while doing all of
Right.
that.
He's on fire. He's doing a double backflip. He's deflecting blaster shots. He delivers one of the coolest lines in Star Wars. He's just Mace Windu,
He
man.
really is. And it just makes me so sad that, like, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson said that he he wanted to come back and play Mace Windu again, and he was trying to tell Disney, like, hey, Maul survived, people have survived falls, my character could have too.
Right, he just lost an arm.
He just lost an arm, got electrocuted, and pushed out of a
high rise.
A high rise, yeah. Anyway.
If he does come back, I want his first line to be, "This party's over."
It better be. And
it's my only want.
And I hope he still has his iconic lightsaber. But this battle, at least we'll get to the actual battle of Geonosis soon, but the battle in the arena is I think one of the only times in the entire film saga that we see a large number of Jedi actually fighting and battling together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, even in Episode 3, because, I mean, after that, most of them are dead. Spoilers, again. But even in Episode 3, the Jedi are spread so thin that there are very few of them together. I mean, obviously there's the battle at the temple, where we do see a lot of Jedi, but that's a very, very quick scene.
Right. So I'd like to unlock an old memory. Hopefully you have it.
Hopefully, yeah.
So the battle in the arena, Obi-Wan and Mace Windu are fighting back to back. You remember, yes?
Yes.
So there was this old Go-Gurt commercial. It was a promo while this movie was coming out of these two kids. They were reenacting this scene, and the Go-Gurt tubes were like glow in the dark. Do you remember this commercial?
I don't.
Well, if you're listening and you remember this commercial, I remember too.
Okay. I'm looking it up right now. I found it on YouTube. The
Please
Slurp
let it
Saber.
unlock your memories. Slurp Saber. I think we could have done a better job on that marketing name, but okay.
Oh gosh, that's so loud. Where the older sister comes
But
out.
I think the tubes were glow in the dark, if I'm right.
Yep.
Does she?
Yeah. Okay. 16 different tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. That is a fantastic commercial, and all advertising should be like it.
Thank you. I thought it was... I don't know why I've always remembered that commercial, but I do.
I think I have vague memories. I think I saw it, but I can't be sure.
Again, we were not very old at the time of this movie coming out.
Yeah, I was 5 at the time.
Yes.
Okay, so then we get Jango Fett and Mace Windu's final fight.
Mm-hmm.
And
I guess Jango was a bit in over his head.
a little bit. I think he got a little cocky. I mean, he killed the dinosaur Jedi. He thought he could do it again.
But Mace Windu is just a bad dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and so something that has stuck out to me the last couple times I've watched it is when Jango Fett's head gets cut off, it's hard to see, but you can actually see his head flying
Fall
in
out.
one direction while the helmet flies
Yeah.
another direction. Oh, Star Wars.
So his head's just there on the battlefield somewhere.
Yeah, because it was always so weird to me. I was like, when Boba Fett goes later and picks up the helmet, I'm like, that's kind of gross. But then, I finally realized that the head flew a completely different direction.
Right.
Okay. Do you have any more notes before the clones arrive?
No, clones come in. We're there. Then we start. They're trying to go track down Dooku, and we get to see the Death Star plan.
We do. Okay, before we get there, though, the Battle of Geonosis, I think, is the best land battle in Star Wars.
Really?
Yes. I just think, at least in my opinion, we never really see at least a ground battle on that scale. I mean, we do see in Episode 3 several different battles, but they're much shorter compared to the actual Battle of Geonosis in terms of screen time.
Besides Episode 1.
Ooh, okay. Episode 1, we do have the battle between the Gungans and the droids, and that is one of my favorite battles, too. But in terms of size, it is a much smaller battle as well.
Right. No, the scale of this one is pretty cool. You got the massive ATTs. You got the spider wheel droids, with the missiles.
Yeah.
Oh, the Hailfire droids. There we go. I had one of those as a kid. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. But no, I just think I love it because we never really see at least a ground battle of that scale anywhere else in the series. Saga series, excluding Clone Wars.
Okay, there we go. I was waiting for that one.
Yeah.
So what did you think about seeing the Death Star?
I lost my mind. I don't think it was the first time I watched it, because the first time I watched it, it didn't click, but I very specifically remember the first time I was watching it, and it clicked. Literally lost my mind. It was one of the coolest Easter eggs I'd seen, and even now watching it this time, it just made my heart so happy. I was like, the Death Star. I mean, obviously they use it to kill millions of people, but just a good Easter egg.
It is pretty cool.
How about you? How did you feel about seeing it?
Again, it was like one of those things we mentioned earlier that you just get to see how things affect the movie later.
Right, yeah.
And you don't really think of the Geonosians building the Death Star, but they do.
Right.
Which, if you watch Rebels, it explains that more.
Yeah. And I think not just the Death Star, but also their ability to build such large droid armies is one reason the Empire just kind of hunted them out of existence.
Yes. That and Darth Jar Jar.
He's the key to it all, I'm telling you. Okay.
He must be.
So, following the battle, I guess the battle's still going on, but Count Dooku's escaping, and Obi-Wan and Anakin are chasing him.
Chasing down Dooku.
Their ship gets shot, and Padme and another clone fall out, and Anakin loses his mind. What do you feel about this?
Well, I actually have a note, and here you see Obi-Wan never makes Anakin dismiss his feelings about Padme. He just makes him realign his feelings.
Yeah.
He says, think of what she would do if she were here. He doesn't say, stop thinking about her, forget her, we have our mission.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to explain it to him in a way he'll understand. And it's just, oh man, come on, Obi-Wan.
Come on, Obi-Wan.
You gotta let him forget this girl.
Okay, so
it's not gonna be good.
Little Easter egg. The clone that fell out of the ship with Padme is CT-85077. For anyone who wanted to know. Codename Finn, like our boy.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you find that out?
So I found this out maybe a year or two ago, so I knew that he had an official name. I mean, I guess technically all the clones do, but one that was actually given, but I couldn't remember what it was, so I just looked it up, if I'm being honest. Anyway, yes, I completely agree, though. I never really thought of that Obi-Wan doesn't really try and stop Anakin, and maybe, just a theory, it's because he understands, because he knows he has feelings for Satine.
Yes. Everyone, watch Clone Wars. You have to.
Watch Clone Wars. It's so good.
It's amazing. It makes the whole series a lot more fun.
Oh, without a doubt. Okay, so we get to the cave that Dooku's about to escape from.
Yes, the little hangar bay.
And one thing that really stuck out to me is when Obi-Wan and Anakin jump out of the ship right before it explodes, 2 or 3 clone troopers also jump out and are safe. Where were they?
I'm guessing holding down the perimeter.
I'm guessing so. And, I really think they didn't just disappear. I don't think it was a continuity error. I think you're right. They were holding down the fort. They were probably contacting for help, letting everyone else know where they are. But that was my first thought when Obi-Wan and Anakin ran through the door. I was like, where are the clones?
I think they were holding down the perimeter.
I agree. And now we get the Count Dooku v. Obi-Wan and Anakin, and let's just be real here. If Anakin wasn't consumed by his anger and charged Dooku, they probably could have held him off until until Yoda got there. And then the 3 of them could have easily captured him.
Right, but Anakin's the best.
I know you're being sarcastic, and you don't actually...
That's why he lost his arm, because he's the best.
I know you're being sarcastic, but he's the worst.
He's the best.
Anakin.
He just lost an arm.
Listen to Obi-Wan. You could have stopped the war. Really, Obi-Wan says it as they're on the way. If they capture Dooku, there's a really good chance of stopping the war. And I don't think they would have actually stopped the war. I think it still would have gone on, but I don't think it would have gone on as long.
I think things would have ended the exact same way if they would have captured Dooku.
Oh. Okay, yes, Anakin probably would have turned to the dark side, but think about this. Dooku trains Ventress. Ventress trains Savage, who is the one who goes and saves Maul. Spoilers. Without Dooku, Ventress most likely wouldn't have become whatever she was. I know she was a Sith apprentice, but it's confusing because there's a whole rule of 2, but there's a large number of dark side users. Anyway, she wouldn't have trained Savage. He most likely wouldn't have saved Maul, and Maul would have stayed in the little trash chute where he was at, and that would have drastically changed some of the later events.
But they didn't. Either way, I think Palpatine would have adapted again, and things would have turned out just the way they would have.
He and the Sith had been planning this for way too long. I completely agree.
We see it in the first film. Whenever people don't do what he thinks they're going to do, he immediately adapts and immediately goes right back into his plan.
How dare they not go with his plan? Good old Palpatine only wants the best for the galaxy.
Is it his plan or is it Jar Jar's plan?
It's the Sith plan. I mean, they'd
Make up your mind.
The Sith had been planning this for generations. I mean, obviously Palpatine was the most powerful Sith. He was the one who was able to actually complete it, but many Sith had been planning this for a long time.
So what are your opinions on the Yoda versus Dooku fight? Because it's a pretty controversial fight.
I like it. Okay, and so obviously people are like, oh, Yoda's old. He walks around on a cane all the time. He was definitely using the Force in this fight to help add to his agility. And then, so people are like, oh, well, why doesn't he add the Force to everything he does? Because that would be disrespectful to the Force.
Well, that, and I think it'd take a lot out of him.
Yeah, you're right.
To be that open would, I think, eventually just... We'd see it like we do in... later in the films, whenever Luke disappears into the Force.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's not that far-fetched. Like we said, this isn't the same Yoda we see later.
Right, and Yoda wouldn't have just been trained with the Force. Like, he was obviously trained with a lightsaber. He was the Grand Master for a reason.
Right, you don't get there by not using your lightsaber.
Right.
But overall, you're okay with seeing Yoda do all the crazy flips and stuff.
Oh, without a doubt.
But I also wanted to point out that Yoda mentions that Dooku was his Padawan.
Right. And so that's another thing that I see people have problems with, because they're like, oh, but Yoda was supposed to be teaching, like, the younglings. But I don't think it ever states that he was always just teaching the younglings. Like, he probably had multiple Padawans throughout his very long life.
Right, well, just to, like, follow the lineage, you know, you have Yoda who teaches Dooku.
Right.
Who teaches Qui-Gon. And then Obi-Wan is taught by Yoda until he's assigned to Qui-Gon.
Right.
And then, of course, he teaches Anakin.
Of course. It's all connected.
It is. It's like someone thought it through.
It's like a lot of care and effort went into creating this series.
Almost.
But you know what?
We're nearing the end.
We are. We're so close.
We are. But we get back to Coruscant. Obi-Wan, Mace, and Yoda are together again in the Jedi Temple. And Obi-Wan says, I have to admit, though, without the clones, this wouldn't have been a victory.
Mm-hmm.
And Yoda says, you know, this was no victory. And that it's just the beginning.
Right.
And I always think that line is really cool, the idea of victory and what is victory. Like, yeah, they may have won the Battle of Geonosis, but what's going to happen now?
What sparked
because
from
it's not,
it, yeah.
Exactly. It's not going to be just this one fight. What have we gotten ourselves into, and how is this going to unfold?
Right. And this is also the conversation where Obi-Wan tells Mace and Yoda what Count Dooku said about how there is a Sith controlling the Republic, and Yoda himself turns it down, saying it's all just lies.
Right. That Dooku has turned to the dark side. Now his ideals and principles are deceit and creating mistrust.
Right. It's almost like there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom.
It is the theme of this movie, and it was given to us by a lowly diner manager.
Right. I love these films so much, because even characters that may not seem that important are extremely important.
I agree.
Okay, so do you have anything else before the wedding?
Just one thing.
Okay, great.
We get the shot of all the clones being loaded onto the ships right there at the end,
Right.
with all of the senators, on the balcony looking out at them.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the flow of, we have, the stormtrooper music that we get later
Right.
in the next set of films, and it flows back to a different score and then back to the stormtrooper music, and then that flows directly into Across the Stars.
So good. John Williams
And
is
none
the
of it
man.
seems, I completely agree, because nowhere in that scene flowing into the next scene does it feel choppy.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like, okay, here's this music, then a new song. It's all just connected.
Yeah.
I love it.
Me too. John Williams put so much love into this score, and all of them.
Tell me
Okay,
about the wedding.
so we get to the wedding, and this is what I wanted to talk about in terms of the droids. I don't know if you've noticed, but it is at this moment that R2 and C-3PO change their masters, as if it was a wedding gift to the other. Like, they gave each other their droids as wedding gifts.
You, sir, are brilliant.
Thanks. I wish I could take credit for it. I really wish I do. But it wasn't actually me who noticed this. I don't remember who it was. I'd give credit to the original, creator of this theory if I knew, but I don't. But it was not me. But I wish it was.
Then shame.
Shame, I know. But it makes total sense, because after this moment, R2's with Anakin, and C-3PO is with Padme.
That's such a cool theory.
And not only that, but they serve a better use to the other one, if that makes sense. Like, R2 serves a much better use to Anakin, and C-3PO, as a translator, serves a much better use to Padme.
Right, because from this point on, they live together.
Right, yeah.
Elijah, very nice, my friend.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
I would like to harken back to, I don't know if it was our first episode or last episode. It may have been last episode, but you brought up the technology
Yes.
within Star Wars and the difference between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy.
Right.
In that shot we get of Anakin's hand, you know how it's just the metal?
Uh-huh.
And then after that, in the next film, he just has a glove over it.
Right.
And, you know, previously you were talking about how people were like, well, in the prequels, the technology seems like it's much more advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about when Anakin loses his arm to when Luke loses his hand,
Right.
by the end of the movie, Luke has his whole new prosthetic.
Exactly, yeah. It's much more advanced than
And by the end of this one,
Anakin's.
Anakin's just got his creepy skeleton hand.
skeleton hand. Yeah.
His gold skeleton hand.
And to actually bounce off that, I was thinking about it earlier today. The Empire, to build the Death Star cost so much. The Empire not only was, taking natural resources from all over the galaxy, it was also taking just money in general. So the planets were not as financially stable as they were in the prequel era. The Empire, like we talked about last time, even though it seems more advanced in the prequel era, the ships and the weapons they're using and their communications abilities are leagues ahead of what the Grand Army of the Republic is using. But not only just because of the natural progression of technology, but also because the Empire is just bleeding the galaxy dry of its resources.
Right.
Yeah. Go team.
Go team.
Go
That was
team.
my last note.
That was my last note, too. We did it. We made it through another one.
We did. now we have a bunch of new theories
We do. Oh,
and
wait.
ideas.
I had one more note. I'm sorry. Towards the very end, we see Count Dooku talking to, and this is sarcasm here, Darth Sidious, this clothed figure who just almost seems a little familiar. Like, I almost recognized his face under that robe. Almost. Anyway, well, we have really enjoyed getting to talk about Star Wars. If you guys have any Star Wars related questions, you can reach us at animalsquadron@gmail.com. Again, that is animalsquadron@gmail.com.
Or reach out to us on our Instagram page, which is Animal Squadron Podcast.
Yes, please follow us there.
It'd be great. Elijah, I think it's about time to wrap it up.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay, so you can find me on TikTok or YouTube. Just search MotherGoose27. You can find me there. And from my YouTube channel, you can find all of my other social media links in my About page. HouseDog, how about you? Anything you want to promote?
Just you and all of your hard work that you do
Thanks.
for this podcast and your own channel.
Yeah, wow. I couldn't do it without you.
You could. It'd just be way less fun.
That is true. I guess maybe like my own personal channel, but like the podcast I couldn't do without you. I had 14 notes. You had 3 pages. So, thank you for all your hard work too.
Yes, but without you, I couldn't come up with the Darth C-3PO, or the Grandmaster C-3PO theory.
That Yoda's just a temp.
He is just a placeholder. He's a figurehead, I tell you, a figurehead.
A puppet of C-3PO.
Yes, C-3PO is pulling the strings.
Okay, so how does that work though? Because Yoda was Grandmaster before C-3PO was created. Did he just walk in and say, I'm in charge now?
It was the will of the Force.
'Twas the will of the Force. Well, HouseDog, why don't you tell everybody what they can look forward to next time?
Ooh boy, we're finally covering episode 3.
The best of the best.
It is. If you think the past 2 podcasts have been long, oh boy.
Oh boy, I would not. I mean, this is not a promise, but I would not be surprised if the next episode was at least 3 hours.
Who knows what theories are going to come from this?
Oh my gosh. I can already tell we're just going to go on a mad rabbit trail of Grandmaster C-3PO and Darth Lord of the Sith Jar Jar Binks.
I'll be having to look for other theories that will support this.
Good. Me too. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's podcast. We will be back on the 15th of October for Animal Squadron. This has been Mother Goose.
And HouseDog.
Thanks for listening.